Borderlands 4 is set to release here very soon. I'm going to go over some new launch updates, what we're seeing around that, and all the confusion there. We'll look at the actual preload and pre-download details, as well as what's happening with release times, new driver updates, even a day one patch. Last up, we'll go over some community mentionables, which do contain some additional collaborations, as well as a whole bunch more. What's up, World Utopia, here back in with another video. Today we're checking out all things Borderlands 4. Okay, so let's just jump into it. We'll get into the preload times and even the download size of the game currently. We actually have this tweet out by the PlayStation Game Size. Went on to say here what the download size is and even the version of the current Borderlands Day 1 patch. Because right now, as you can see here, the download size on PlayStation is around 28 gigabytes, with it being version 1.002.001. Now this same version applies across the board here, but we do have a different download size for the Xbox and PC. So for the Xbox, it actually is fairly close to that. It's 29.5 gigabytes, but for the PC, it is 65 gigabytes. So more than likely, they're having you download the 4K textures with that package. That could even include 2K textures as well. So essentially, the PC is just downloading higher res assets. Now we'll go over the day one patch here shortly and what that could entail. However, first, I know a lot of you are probably wondering what's going on with the pre-download situation, especially pertaining to PC. However, currently it does look like the Xbox and PlayStation platforms can pre-download, although I have heard some variants there that some people have had issues with that. Overall though, you should be able to pre-download if you're on an Xbox Series X and S, or even a PlayStation 5. However, that actually does differ when it comes to the PC platform. So currently both the Epic Games platform and Steam do not have access to a pre-download. Now there has been rumors going around that this might actually change, that it could actually launch tonight as a pre-download, or even early in the morning, because if you do remember, you can actually launch the game at 11 a.m. CST, 12 p.m. EST, or 9 a.m. PST. But given that context there, more than likely there's probably not going to be a pre-download. Also, from what I've read in the creator chats, it seems like the pre-download is not going to be available, at least from some of the community managers there, basically confirming more than likely there's not going to be a pre-download. So unfortunately for PC players, that does seem to be like the case. There's been a ton of posts about this on the subreddit, so I figured I would cover it. I also did talk about it in my last video, and basically said I thought there would be a pre-download. However, unfortunately, it looks like there's not going to be the case. I'll link down below to these posts so you can kind of keep active with that. And if there is any news on the pre-downloading, I'll try to update with a pinned comment. But yeah, as of right now, even if you pre-purchase, you're not able to pre-download on either platform. Speaking of the pre-download, there has been a confirmation for the Day 1 patch. As of right now, this may or may not be included in the preload, although more than likely this will just launch as soon as the game is launching or around that time. We do actually have some updates on that. There was this post here talking about this, and this tweet actually comes from a staff writer over at Destructoid, so basically a reviewer. They said they've been playing Borderlands since last week, but they do say that it is in desperate need of a Day 1 patch optimization for PC. They mentioned there's crashing, hitching, stuttering, and even freezing galore. Now, we actually got the CEO of Gearbox, Randy Pitchford, actually jump in here. He does mention here the Day 1 patch does a lot, although he does mention here the expectation for using below min-spec machines should be that the game is unplayable, that the game running at all on those systems is kind of a miracle. He does mention you can get around 50 to 60 FPS out of heavy combat, that it is essentially given how the engine is working and what's going on under the hood. He mentions that, of course, if it's a certain SSD or HDD, that could explain some of the hitching, that older hardware may not provide buttery smooth experience. Now, if you're curious, this reviewer, or at least staff member from Destructoid, is actually running with a 12700K and an RTX 3070. They are currently using low preset with 1080p resolution, just going off some of their specs there. I will go over some of the steps here on how you can actually mitigate for Borderlands 4 and be able to actually run it at higher frame rates. Although, again, Randy does clarify here that he may be conflating recommended specs with required specs, and that 2K QA collaborating with the engineering team at Gearbox sets the standard. They do indicate they're able to achieve 60 FPS average with a minimum spec PC. That's typically on medium settings, so different PC configs will vary there. He does mention though, yes, Day 1 patch has some key improvements and optimizations, and essentially just wants everyone to have a realistic expectation for performance, where of course lower end hardware might not meet the same standards of a modern PC, which could depend on a range of specifications and even different settings, although they said they are confident given the game's performance. I will say 60 FPS is fairly low as a PC player. I do wish the target average was at 120, at least going off of modern hardware and with the modern tech that we have like DLSS. However, as he does mention here, that is actually for the minimum specifications, which is essentially a 2070, quite an older card. In fact, that is my older graphics card, which came out way back in 2017 or 2018. So it is more than 7 years old at this point. Although on top of the day one patch, there is some additional things that we can do here to actually mitigate and get better performance. The first one here, if you haven't seen or if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, there is actually a GeForce driver update, and this one specifically pertains to Borderlands. Now, you don't need this driver per se, and you should be able to still access all of these features. However, they do mention here that Borderlands is going to be getting DLSS 4 with multi-frame generation, as well as regular frame generation, super resolution, DLLA, and NVIDIA Reflex. Now, again, I assume you don't have to have this driver update. Typically, you don't need to in order to access these features, but just to be sure, you could update your driver, and that might actually give you a performance bonus. This has actually been the case with some of the previous games I've tried. They've actually ran pretty bad and pretty rough, at least on some of the older drivers. Now, I assume if you're on 581, you should be fine, but if not, I would get to 581.29. There is a way to do this and update your driver actually seamlessly, which I would always recommend using display driver uninstall. I'll link to the Reddit post. All the download stuff is there if you wanted to download the actual driver and use DDU. Otherwise, of course, if you wanted to keep it simple, you could just download the update through the app. I might be asking, what if I'm on AMD? Well, there actually was an Adrenaline update here, 25.9.1, and this one, yes, does support Borderlands 4. They also mentioned they enabled FSR 4 for 80 plus titles, and that also should include titles that are FSR 3. Those seemingly are getting upgraded to FSR 4. I did check here, and underneath the list for available FSR 4 games that are supported with 25.9.1, it looks like Borderlands is not currently on this list. So unfortunately, it looks like Borderlands 4 is not going to have FSR 4. However, if you look at 2K's official website, it does say the upscaling method here does include FSR. It has DLSS, and you can even disable it, TSR, or XESS. Since it seemingly more than likely will have FSR 3, you should be able to enable FSR 4 with the driver level update here. So again, you should update your drivers to get that FSR 4, and I would also do so for NVIDIA as well. Now, there is one update to the Destructoid article that I didn't list earlier. This actually did get updated here. This person did have some PSU issues. He says he no longer has the bulk of his problems, that he had to take it to a repair shop. So more than likely, it probably was due on part to that as well. But hopefully these driver updates can actually help your game overall. Last up here, I did mention I wanted to go over some community updates. This first one is for an exclusive weapon skin, or if you actually do sign up for a Shift account, you can receive a Hazard Pay weapon skin. This is available to anybody that signs up. And yes, it is available for Borderlands 4. So I'll include a link to it down below if you do want to make an account and sign up with the account that you will use. You'll probably have to link it together, like with your Steam account, in order to receive that weapon skin. There's also another really cool post I wanted to feature here. This one goes over the Japanese Borderlands 4 cover. And yes, they do showcase it is actually different than the NA or global version. Really cool there. This one's super different. I actually like this one a ton. Aside from the way they made Vex look at the bottom here, they essentially made her waist kind of look like Play-Doh. So it does look a bit odd overall, but other than that, this actually does look like a better cover to me. Kind of wish they would have utilized this one and just modified Vex a little bit. Overall, though, really enjoying the Japanese layout here. Another mention here, people are probably waiting for reviews. What's going on with the review scores? Well, we actually did get a tweet in reply here from Metacritic, and essentially they went over that some new and upcoming video games with Metascores would be available. This one pertains to Borderlands 4, and that we should expect reviews by the end of the week, September 12th, as the embargo doesn't drop until later. I do believe it drops sometime tomorrow, probably coinciding with the PC release. So if you haven't seen reviews just yet, that's the reason why. We have two last community mentionables here. This first one is actually a collaboration with G Fuel, where you can earn yourself a golden key redemption, and some unique items here like a shaker, the G Fuel tub, even a golden digital key, as well as a sticker and a claptrap box. So pretty cool there. I assume these will be fairly limited, but these are the collection edition, and there is currently a waitlist. There is actually one more here, and that is with Funko Pop. It does look like they're going to be launching a Funko Pop design for this. It actually does include the four main characters, Amon, Harlow, Vex, Rafa, as well as even Claptrap. So pretty cool there if you wanted some Funko Pop designs. Overall though, it should about cover for today's video. If you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, and to the next one. Deuce!